All right, guys. Calm down, calm down. Firefly is so close. And she looks so good. Do y'all see those animations? Oh, it's top tier. It's so good. I have no complaints about this character. So we're gonna talk about Firefly today. We're gonna go through her kit. We're gonna talk about teams. We're gonna talk about Lightcones, relics, all that stuff, and give you guys a head start on beginning to build her so that when she drops, you can just go ahead and level her up and just start playing with her as soon as you can. Alright, so you guys already know Firefly is going to be a fire destruction character coming in the new patch. And she is a character that is heavily focused on dealing damage with breaking the enemy's weakness. So she is a break effect scaling character and not really a crit scaling character. She's got a lot of abilities where if you increase her break effect, her damage is going to skyrocket. And then when you pair her up with other characters that boost break damage, she's just going to get even better. So let's go ahead and just like dive right in. So first off, Firefly's kind of general loop gameplay is kind of like an install character. And what I mean by install character is a character kind of like Jinglu, right? She has a second state where she gets a bunch of buffs, and that's where she does the most of her damage. Her base state is where she doesn't really do a lot of damage. They kind of have to balance out the super strong state with this kind of weaker state to quote-unquote balance the character. So our ultimate goal is to get into the state as quickly as possible and to stay in that state for as long as possible. So her special state is called the complete combustion state and is tied to her ultimate. But we'll kind of get into that in a little bit. Just understand that that is her general gameplay style. So first off, we're going to start with the skills in her normal state. She's got a basic attack and she's got a skill. Her basic attack, don't even worry about it. You'll never want to use it ever, ever, ever. And then her skill. Her skill is a single target skill when in base form and will consume 40% of her maximum HP. And then it will actually also regenerate 60% of her maximum energy. Not like typical skills where you only regenerate 30 energy. This is a percentage increase to her maximum energy that she recovers. She also deals fire damage equal to 200% of her attack to a single target enemy. This is at talent level 10. And also, since it's an HP drain effect, it has the same effect as all other HP drain moves where if you don't have enough HP, you'll just be set to 1 HP. She doesn't knock herself out. And then additionally, her action gets advanced by 25%. That's actually really huge in my eyes. Action advancement is just one of the most OP kind of mechanics in the game. So by 25% is pretty good. So the reason why this ability regenerates 60% of her energy is because that her energy cost for her ultimate is insanely high. It's a 240 cost energy. And so basically the thought that I think that MiHoYo is going for here is that the only reliable way to get into her ultimate state is to use her skill. And you have to use her skill twice in order to get into the complete combustion state. Basically, MiHoYo just doesn't want you to cheat your way into the ultimate by killing enemies or by using characters like Ting Yun or Ho-Ho to kind of regen her energy to kind of keep her in that state indefinitely. So basically, when you're in game, Firefly is only in that normal state, basically only for one turn at a time. So, you know, let's say you exit the complete combustion state and then you're at 0 energy. When it comes around to her next turn, she's going to gain 60% energy. And then on her second turn, she's going to get another 60% energy, giving her her ultimate, and then she's able to pop the ultimate. So basically, right, there's only one turn of downtime between her ultimate state and her base state. So, you know, that's pretty good in my opinion. The uptime on her ultimate is pretty dang high. So, you know, Firefly has a very low downtime on her ultimate state. Whereas with Jinglu, sometimes I kind of felt like she was in her base state for a little bit too long. So anyway, now let's go ahead and move on to her ultimate. We have generated enough energy to pop the ultimate. What does the combustion state actually do? So the ultimate is an enhanced type ultimate. So unlike Jinglu's, which it was an attack, this one is simply getting into her complete combustion state. And then when you pop the ultimate, just like Jinglu, she gains 100% action advancement. So she immediately gets her turn again. So, you know, that's what I was saying. It only has technically 1 turn of downtime, because on your second turn, when you use the skill and get enough energy, you get another turn. And then once she's in the complete combustion state, she gets enhanced abilities, and also her speed increases by 60 points, presumably at level 10. And then also all of her abilities gains 50% extra weakness break efficiency, and the break damage that they receive is increased by 20%. And the way that this state ends is by a countdown timer, very similar to that of Robin. It shows up on the action order, and then when its turn comes around, that's when Firefly exits the complete combustion state. The speed on this is a fixed speed of 70, so it's quite slow, which is really good, so that we can get as many actions as possible during that time to maximize our damage as much as possible. Additionally, while inside of the ultimate, you cannot regenerate any kind of energy from skills or killing enemies. So when you exit the complete combustion state, you are going to have only 5 energy. The weakness break efficiency that she also gains should stack with Ron-Mei and other similar types of buffs in the SU, or basically any other kind of game mode. So we can really stack this weakness break efficiency and start breaking enemies super quickly. And so with a fixed speed of 70, we can very easily determine how many actions we can get depending on Firefly's speed. So since it has a fixed speed of 70, in order to get 3 extra actions within the time limit, you need 210 speed. You basically just divide by 70. So 210 divided by 70 is 3. If you want 4 actions, then you have to do 280. Now, this is not counting the action advancement that you get from just popping the ultimate. So technically with 210 speed, you'll actually have 4 actions, 4 attacks before she exits the complete combustion state. Now, 210 should be a very achievable speed with the right build. 280 is going to be a little bit tougher, but you can probably reach that within the SU very easily. Her base speed is 104, so if we add the 60 speed that we get from the ultimate, we're at 164 speed. You add in a pair of speed boots and you can reach 189 speed. Ron-Mei also provides a speed buff by about 10%, so an extra 10 speed would put us at 199. If your Ron-Mei also likewise has the hacker space set, then all allies' speed will increase by another 12%, and at this point, you're basically at 210 speed. So there is no need for any speed substats. However, if you can get 25 speed and substats, that's pretty ideal, because that means you can switch the boots to an attack type boot and get more damage that way. 25 speed out of substats, though, is pretty crazy. So good luck with that if that's what you're going for. And you know what? Here's another really cool thing. If you finish a wave while still in the complete combustion state, everything resets. So that means you'll get an extra 3 actions going into the next wave, and you'll stay in the complete combustion state. So if you build your Firefly strong enough to finish a wave before she exits the combustion state, then you just extend the duration of her ultimate. Now let's go ahead and move on to her enhanced moves. She does have an enhanced basic attack, but again, you're not really going to be using that. You want to stick with her enhanced skill. But anyway, her enhanced basic attack just heals her HP by 20%. It's also a single target move, not even a blast type move, and it deals 200% of her attack to a single target enemy. So, you know, it's really not that great. You want to avoid using it as much as possible. You want to stick to her skill, which is a blast type skill. It will restore her HP by 25%, and then also applies fire weakness to a single target enemy. So it's a blast, so that means that the fire implant only goes onto the selected target and not the adjacent targets. So that is a little bit unfortunate, but it is what it is. And the way that this deals its damage is actually based off of Firefly's break effect. So there's a little bit of math that kind of happens here. And basically, the scaling is determined by 20% of Firefly's break effect. So, for example, let's say that Firefly's break effect is 360%. 20% of 360 is 72%. And then the base scaling on this is 200% at talent level 10. This means that if your Firefly has 360 break effect, this is going to deal 272% damage to the selected target, and then half of that to the adjacent targets. And the reason why I said 360 is because that is the cap on this skill. The weakness break on this is also pretty strong for a blast type move. It's 90 to the target and 45 to the adjacent targets. And because she is such a break focused character, that's good that this move does so much weakness break damage. Or I should say toughness damage, not weakness break damage. So anyway, stick to the blast type skill while in her ultimate, and you'll want to bolster that. And it's going to get bolstered by her talents, and then also by the team that you use Firefly on. So very clearly, Ron May and the Harmony Trailblazer are going to be some of her best teammates, and even in the stream, they were hinting that those are going to be two of her best teammates. So even Hoyoverse is telling you that you should try to use these two characters on your Firefly team. Now let's very quickly move on to her talent. It's just that she gets some damage reduction the lower her HP is, up to 40% damage reduction when her HP is 20% or lower. And also her effect res increases by 30%. Also, if her energy is lower than 50 when she starts a battle, she will regenerate energy up to 50%. And then also, once she gains 100% energy, she dispels all buffs on herself. So that's pretty nice. And basically what this talent allows Firefly to do is that she only needs to pop one skill at the start of the battle to enter into complete combustion state. So, basically they're just trying to reduce downtime, and, they don't want her to be clunky at the start of a fight if you just happen to have like 10% or 20% energy for some reason, as then that would require you to have one turn of downtime. So that's just basically eliminating that situation. Now let's talk about her technique. Her technique just has her leap into the air for about 5 seconds, and then you can do a plunging attack from it. It's going to attack all of the enemies within a set area, and then apply fire weakness onto all of the enemies, which lasts 2 turns, and then it deals fire damage equal to 200% of her attack. The fire implant is pretty nice, so that way, you get some extra damage because they are now kind of basically weak to it, and then also, once you break them, you get some extra damage, because you're going to be building a lot of break effect, and so that's just going to be a lot of initial damage when they get weakness broken. Now let's go ahead and talk about her traces. Her first trace is that for every 10 of Sam's attack that exceeds 1,800, her break effect increases by 1%. And do note that there is no cap for this at all. That's pretty crazy. Now, there is a cap for break effect when it comes to the skill and the scaling on it, but other than that, there's no cap at all. So that means your super break damage can be pretty strong, and then just overall, your regular weakness break damage can be as strong as you want it, as long as your break effect is like insanely high. So the sky's the limit there. Well, we'll talk a little bit more about builds in a little bit and how we can kind of utilize this trace as best as we can, but for now, let's go ahead and move on to her other traces. Her next trace is that when in complete combustion state, when her break effect is equal to or greater than 200% or 360%, attacking a weakness broken enemy target will convert the toughness reduction of this attack into one instance of super break. 35% if you're at 200% break effect, and 50% if you're at 360%. So if this is confusing to you, basically it's worded this way because super break scales off of how much toughness damage the attack actually does. If you want to learn more about how super break damage is calculated, there are lots of resources out on YouTube that kind of explain it, and potentially I may also create a guide for that, an explanation video for how that works in the coming days or weeks before Firefly comes out. And then her third trace is that during her ultimate, when you attack enemies that have no fire weakness, you can still reduce their toughness. The effect is 55% of the original toughness reduction from abilities. It's a little bit weird that it's 55% and they didn't just make it 50%. So, right, for example, she doesn't apply the fire weakness to the adjacent targets when she uses her skill. Damage is 45 for the adjacent, so it's gonna be about 22, 25-ish to those adjacent targets. And then her stat bonuses is that she gets 5 points of speed, 18% effect resistance, and 37.3% extra break effect. That break effect is really nice because, again, we want to hit at least 360% break effect to maximize her second trace and the scaling for her enhanced skill. Alright, so there's something very important that we have to address about Firefly, and that's kind of her matchup spread. You know, since she is very much a break-focused character, there are bosses in the game that inevitably just is not a great matchup for her. On the other hand, there are certain bosses that are an amazing matchup for her. So basically what I mean is that there are bosses that will lock their weakness bar. And when they lock their weakness bar, Firefly's damage output is going to drop dramatically because we can't deal any super break damage and we can't deal any of that initial break damage. So that's just kind of a given. However, of course, there are enemies in the game that have multiple weakness bars. So that means you'll be doing a ton of just initial break damage every time you break that bar. So, you know, that's just something to keep in mind where Firefly might not be the best unit to bring every single fight in the game. Alright, now let's go ahead and talk relics. So in terms of relic sets, the new relic set that's coming with the new patch is going to be her best in slot. It's going to increase her break effect by 16% for the 2-piece set. And then the 4-piece set is if the wearer's break effect is 150% or higher, it will ignore 10% of the enemy's defense when dealing break damage. And then when you're at 250% or higher, the super break damage that they deal will ignore 15% of the target's defense. This is really great because break damage and super break damage don't benefit from any kind of damage bonuses. So fire damage bonus and also, unfortunately, Ron May's damage bonus doesn't really help us with our initial break damage and our super break damage. And so this is also why we probably don't want to be running other relic sets that kind of increase our damage bonus, like the Firesmith set. Not a great set, even though Firefly is a fire type character. Next up, in terms of planar ornament sets, also the new set is going to be good for her. It will increase her speed by 6%. So, you know, some extra speed is really good to help us reach those breakpoints to get as many actions as possible during her complete combustion state. And then also, when the wearer hits enemy targets with fire weakness, the wearer's break effect increases by 40%, lasting for 1 turn. So, you know, pretty much this ornament set is tailor-made for Firefly. It is so scoped down to just fire type weak enemies, and Firefly, of course, herself is a fire type character, but then also implants fire weakness. So basically you're always going to be able to proc this set effect. Next up is the Talia Kingdom of Banditry. It will increase the wearer's break effect by 16%, and then when their speed is 145 or higher, they get an extra 20%. So 36% extra break effect when we get 145 speed, and that's very achievable for Firefly because her ultimate gives her a bunch of extra speed. So basically the requirements for this is just always met. And so those are basically the 2 planar ornament sets that I would recommend that you use on Firefly. Now let's talk about main stats that you want to use on Firefly. You'll want to go with an attack body. We are foregoing the crit. I mentioned this already, but crit does not complement Firefly's kit at all. We want to stick to break effect and attack to basically increase our break effect with her trace, and also just because the scaling for her attacks scale with her attack stat. And then for the boots, we want to go speed boots in order to hit those break points. Remember, it's 210 after all of your buffs to get 4 actions, including the action advance. And then if you use Ron May with the hacker space set, you might be able to lower your speed even more. But at the end of the day, after you calculate all your buffs, if you can hit 210, that's basically your goal. Next up, the orb is attack percent. We don't want to be going with the fire damage because, again, break and super break do not get any bonuses from damage bonus buffs. So we want to just go all in pretty much on attack to help increase our break effect, and then also make it so that the scaling on our attacks are a bit stronger. And then lastly, for the rope, we definitely want to go with a break effect rope because a 5-star break effect, Link Rope just gives so much break effect. It gives 64.7%. Whereas if you went with attack here, you know, we would get some extra attack stat, and we would get a conversion of break effect, but that conversion with a 5-star attack rope only converts to about 22.6% break effect. So we're getting some attack, but break effect is just so much more worth it. So 64.7% versus 22.6%, we definitely are going to favor the 64.7%. So anyway, with this build, if you go with the new planar ornament set, or if you go with Talia, you're going to reach about 250% break effect. This means that we aren't quite at the cap to maximize Firefly's kit just yet. So that means we have to get the rest of our break effect bonuses from buffs from our teammates. Namely, that's going to be from the Harmony Trailblazer. So let's go ahead and talk about some of her best teammates. And so obviously that's going to be the Harmony Trailblazer, as even indicated by Helioverse, giving us an entire trailer basically showcasing these two. But Harmony Trailblazer and Ronmei are going to be really good teammates for her. Increasing weakness break efficiency is going to be good so that you can get to those initial breaks faster. And if you might be thinking that that might not be good because she also delays the weakness bar from coming back, the idea is that you want to be killing things within that first weakness break already. So combining that and then all of the super break damage that you deal to them while they're broken, you should be killing them before they even get to their next recovery toughness bar. And then of course, anyway, Harmony Trailblazer can give you 60% break effect, one from her ultimate and then one from her technique. And then also, once we get E4 on Harmony Trailblazer, we can increase all of the teammates' break effect equal to 15% of the Trailblazer's break effect. So definitely when you build your Trailblazer, you want to go all in on break effect so that you can give as much break effect to Firefly as possible. Additionally, the Relic set Watchmaker, Master of Dream Machinations, is the relic set that you definitely want to go for the Harmony Trailblazer. And the 4-piece effect is that when they use their ultimate on an ally, their break effect increases by 30% for 2 turns. So this is another 30%. So we're at 90% extra break effect just from the Trailblazer alone if you use her technique, her ultimate, and this 4-piece set effect. So with that said, 250 plus 90 gives us about 340% break effect. So we're 20 points shy, 20% shy of reaching Firefly's maximum cap. However, this doesn't mean that you can go further. The maximum cap is just for the scaling on her skill. So once you add in substats, you should have no problem reaching 360 break effect at least. And then what about Firefly's final teammate? Well, in my opinion, you're going to need some kind of sustain character, and I think that Gallagher is probably going to be one of the better teammates for her. This is because you also build Gallagher for break effect, so that means his super break damage and also his break damage is going to be quite strong. And then also the besotted state makes enemy targets receive 12% more break damage. So that's a little buff for Firefly if she's the one that's breaking the weakness bars. And then of course we just kind of need a sustain on the team just in case. So not a bad choice. This is probably what a standard team is going to be looking like for Firefly, but this doesn't mean that you can change it up if you're trying to go for some kind of zero cycle where you just completely omit your abundance character or some kind of sustain and you just try to go all in on damage. All right, now let's talk about her Lightcone. Her signature Lightcone, Whereabout Should Dreams Rest, is undoubtedly going to be her best in slot. No questions asked, and it's going to increase her break effect by 60%, and then when you deal break damage to an enemy target, it inflicts Routed onto the enemy, lasting for 2 turns. Targets afflicted with Routed receive 24% increased break damage, and their speed gets lowered by 20%. This sounds really strong, and there might actually be some secret synergy between Firefly and A.K.A. When we take a look at this Lightcone, if Routed is considered a debuff, then Firefly is going to be a great character to charge A.K.A.'s ultimate. If anyone knows if Routed is actually considered a debuff, let me know down in the comments. So there is basically this Routed potential debuff, and then the speed lowering, which should also be considered a debuff. And then of course, Firefly is breaking weaknesses, and weakness break is considered a debuff, right? Because when you break them with fire, they get fire dot. So if you break an enemy and you inflict routed and you lower their speed, that's 3 debuffs onto the enemy. So there is some pretty interesting potential synergy here to charge Acheron's ultimate. We can go for some kind of dual DPS team here. You're going to be doing so much damage that you probably don't even need a sustain. The idea is just that as long as Firefly is able to apply some kind of debuff every time her turn comes around, then she's going to be at least a decent partner for Acheron. Because even though we can apply 3 debuffs within one possible turn, it's not like Acheron gets 3 stacks of Slashed Dream. The next Lightcone is her to shop Lightcone on the Fall of an Eon. Whenever the wearer attacks, their attack is increased by 16%. This is at S5, and then this effect can stack up to 4 times, so 64% extra attack, so that's pretty nice. That's also going to convert into more break effect, so that's really, really good. And then when they inflict a weakness break, they get a damage increase by 24%. So the second part of this doesn't really help our break damage and super break damage, but it is a damage increase to the base scaling of our skill. So not absolutely terrible, but maybe not as good as, say, a defense decrease or a defense ignoring mechanic. And then the next Lightcone is a 4-star Lightcone, Indelible Promise. It will increase break effect of the wearer by 56% at S5 or 28% at S1. Then also when they use their ultimate, their crit rate is increased by 15% at S1 and 30% at S5. So crit rate, again, is not the most ideal stat for Firefly, so the second part of this Lightcone is just not very good, but break effect is just in general very valuable for Firefly, so this makes this 4-star Destruction Lightcone one of her better options. And to be honest, out of every other Destruction Lightcone, there really isn't any other good choices. So we're kind of limited. We don't have very many break effect focused Lightcones within the Destruction category. I hope this video helps you get a head start in preparing for Firefly. And if it did, and if you made it this far, don't forget to drop a like and consider subscribing to the channel. And guys, keep an eye out for more videos. A Jade video may be coming out in the near future, and also an explanation on how Super Break works. Until next time, guys, I will see you guys in the next one.